My name is Christopher Jarvis, and I am the lead developer of TradeBots, the newest game from our nonprofit, Cinq-Mars Media. Let's get started. At its core, TradeBots is an idle game where you earn funds over time. You're doing this without knowing what year it is or what stock it is that you are prospectively investing in. As you continue to make more money, you can unlock different upgrades. For example, volume, which now shows you the amount of volume traded on that day. And while that cost us $5 in cash, it has unlocked a learn and earn opportunity where we can earn $20 if we watch this YouTube video, read about the concept on Investopedia, and take the quiz. So this is an example of what the game looks like with all of the upgrades unlocked. Here we have the price of the current stock, which becomes visible after a later upgrade. We have the date of the current stock, the year of which becomes visible after an upgrade is reached. We have the mode, which we're currently in stock mode. We offer ETF and crypto once you get far enough. We have our current cash, available funds not invested in our current stock. We have our current holdings, which is the value of investments in the current stock. You start at a point in time. We sim forward 1 day per second. You can see that October 4th, October 7th, it jumps because weekends and any days where the stock exchanges are not open. That's obviously not relevant for crypto. And if you see this newspaper icon, we can Google what the news articles were up into that date in history. We can buy or sell, and if you have no holdings in the current asset, you're able to short it. Shorting in this game is simplified by taking an inverted position. So if I short this stock with everything that I have and I move forward in time, the stock is going up, but I will have lost money, and when the stock goes down, I will gain. Let's go ahead and cover the short position. Here you have your loan, where you can take out some amount of money, where you pay interest rate that you can upgrade as the game continues. You can change this without penalty inside a given day. Here we have several submenus, and of course our main menu where we can restart the run, toggle tooltips on and off, toggle notifications on and off, extra earning opportunities. This icon represents our brush when our candlestick graph becomes so large that it's difficult to interpret or read. So if we turn any one of these on, we can highlight different periods in the simulation, which becomes especially helpful once we're simulating much further and we want to zoom into a period of time. We have line graphs representing the S&P 500, the current stock price, and your gains. If you were to short the stock, the yellow line would be completely inversely correlated to the red line, as you can imagine, and seeing how the current stock stacks up with the rest of the S&P 500 can be useful for different strategies. Here we have our indicators that are overlaid over the candlestick graph itself. We have volume, trailing ATR, pivot points, Ishimoku cloud, and Bollinger. And each of these have different settings that we can tweak and learn about over the course of the game. Different algorithms for pivot points, different settings for Ishimoku cloud. We can zoom in and see where all these lines are. I'm going to turn some of those off. Now we have to the right our indicators that are represented in a separate graph. ATR, ADX, ARUN, and because of screen space, we've limited to only being able to see 3 of these other indicators at a time. D, RSI, stochastic, and Williams percent. Over the course of the game, you learn how to read all of these different charts, and you can use them to develop your own trading strategies. Here we have our leading indicators. These are overlay indicators, but they don't correspond directly to the candlesticks. Instead, they give you a general impression of how, say, housing starts are over the period in question, or industrial production, or recessions, or the S&P 500 index, the 10-year to 2-year yield spread for bonds, unemployment, the VIX. And of course, any of these you can change the color of. All right, let's declutter this a little bit. We'll leave the bond spread on there, and we'll leave trailing ATR there. Next, we have our most important menu. These represent the 4 automation milestones of TradeBots. When we first start, we start with basic, which means that you just buy and sell at a certain price point manually, sim forward, and repeat. The next automation milestone is limit stop. This allows you to put in limit and stop orders, which is basically a order that automatically triggers once the price falls below a certain threshold or rises above a certain threshold. This way, we don't have to step one day at a time. We can simply set a threshold. So in this case, when the stock falls 1.39%, we have this open limit order, and whenever that happens, it happens the very next day, it has been triggered. Now we get into simple bots. And this is where TradeBots really shines, as the name would imply. My interest in making this game was to highlight and gamify all of the different trading strategies that you can make algorithmically. As a stopgap between this and the more advanced node-based bot management system, we've developed something called simple bots. You have entries and you have exits. Entries represent the conditions for a buy to take place, and exit represents the conditions for a sell to take place. If I go ahead and open entry, we have a lot of options here. If the following conditions are met at any time, once per 2 days, the stock will be bought, shorted, automatically with some percent of your available cash. Each transaction will incur a fee of, right now it's 0% because this is the very end of the game, and the last fee upgrade takes your transaction fees all the way to 0%. If data is ever undefined, return closest value, pause simulation, or return -1. So very simply, we just saw how a limit order worked. If we wanted to replicate what a limit order is, essentially, if a close today is less than the close yesterday, I believe it was 1.39%, this would essentially do the exact same as our limit order. But the simple bot engine is much more powerful than simple limit orders. What we can do is we can say if the 10-day simple moving average today is greater than the 10-day simple moving average from 5 days ago by a factor of, let's say, it's gone up by 3% in 5 days, then we wish to buy the asset. We can also add another conditional, say only do this if the close today is higher than the close yesterday. Let that default to 0. And we can add even more complex groups where we put implied parentheses here. So we say, if this case is true, or let's say another idea is if the volume has gone up dramatically from 3 days ago by 4%, and let's say we also want to couple that with the 20-day Bollinger, the upper bound of that, we can make a conditional for that. And we can mix and match these however we like. And we have access to a lot of the different indicators upon which to base our simple trading strategy. We always have to set the status to active. And we can see trades are being placed. Perhaps the best way to get into the new NodeBots UI, which can be a little intimidating at first, is to upgrade this bot, call it test. And here, if you remember, we had 10-day simple moving average today compared to the 10-day simple moving average 5 days ago. Advanced bots are broken up into 3 different kinds of nodes. We have value nodes, operation nodes, and action nodes. And I guess there is a third type, and that is the nodes that you make, modular nodes. You can combine these nodes and make essentially new nodes. If you're familiar with programming at all, it's like building a function. Let's not worry about that right this moment. So this representation of our simple bot that we made has these 2 green nodes. They return values. 10-day simple moving average today, which feeds into input A of this operation node, which is an if. We have the 10-day simple moving average, same thing, but where n is 5 and days ago. We're comparing whether or not input A is greater than input B, and we multiply B by some constant. If you recall, the first part of the expression needed to have the close from today be greater than the close from yesterday, which is what's happening here in this if conditional. We go through a logic gate. Both of these need to be true, and if both of them are true, then we feed into this logic gate, which is the OR in the previous statement. Again, we have volume n days ago, Bollinger going into the same if conditional. And in this way, we buy if true. Here is an example of a very, very simple advanced bot. Pretty much the simplest imaginable, where we have the trend is your friend rule, where if the simple moving average is going up by a certain percentage over the last 10 days, then we buy with a certain percentage of our cash. Otherwise, if it's the opposite and the momentum is in the other direction, we sell. Once we simulate forward, we can actually see what the values of these are. In this case, simple moving average today was 20.36, 19.18, which is true, and you can see that the market trade did in fact trigger. And in the logs, we can see that 2 buys took place over the last 2 days. We can also see a stack trace, which is exactly what happened for that in order to be true. Similarly, if we are in simple bot mode, we can also look at these logs and we can look at these stack traces. So let's go ahead and create a new bot from scratch. We have advanced indicators, leading indicators, constants, metadata, and variables. Basic indicators you've already seen. We have close, open, high, low volume, holdings, cash, and your net worth. And you can grab that value from some date in the past. Advanced indicators, those are your SMAs, EMAs, Bollingers, MACDs, a lot of the indicators that we've already gone over visually, but you can access them through this node. Same thing any day in the past, and each of these have specific advanced options that you can tweak. Ishimoku, you have Senken-sen, Kijun-sen, and the Senku span. And whatever value you get from that is outputted here and manipulated elsewhere in your bot. Operations, we have if, logic, you've seen both of those. Math, if we take constant and we say 1 plus, let's say, 5, this result would equal 6. Range is a little bit more complicated. Range value allows us to get a statistical measure, like the largest value, the smallest value, the percent growth, the mean, the standard deviation, the median, the mode, or the variance of a range of values. It's a little confusing because it's labeled green, but it's under the operations menu. Say we have an advanced indicator like Bollinger. If we feed this indicator into the range value, this will get the average Bollinger value of the last 10 days. Change this to 10 days ago and this to standard deviation. This would get the standard deviation of the upper Bollinger starting 20 days ago for 10 days. So in the 10-day interval starting 20 days prior, because we're getting the value 10 days ago and then looking at the range 10 days before that. Using a conditional, this is greater than, say, a constant value of 0.3, this will either be true or false. If it's true, we can perform a market trade, we can set a variable, we can switch a bot, and we can stop the simulation. You can export this bot as a .tradebot file and share it online with other members of the community. You can also import their bots and try them out for yourself. So hopefully this helps a little bit and is enough to help get you started, and we really hope you enjoy the game.